Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever and whenever you may be listening to this broadcast. I'm Mark Holliday. Welcome to your encouraging word. You know, I always like to start the broadcast off with a question. And my question to you is, what drives you? What gives you your push? What gives you that up? What's the octane in your tank that keeps you going? Well, that's what I want to speak to you about because I like taking parallels from the Bible and I ask myself a question. I always ask questions like today, what kept the patriarchs going? What kept the people in the Bible going? We read about stories from Noah to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. We read about Daniel. We read about the three Hebrew boys that was thrown in the fiery furnace. Daniel thrown in the lion's den. We read about Joseph that was thrown in prison. What kept them going through their trials and tests? And many of you all know that you're going through something right now and you feel like giving up. But I want to encourage you, don't give up because you have to know that there's something on the other side of this trial that's a blessing for you, your family, and every aspect of your life. This is why it's so important for us to keep our eyes on the vision and realize what is it that's driving us? What's keeping us going? Why do we exist? You know, Miles Monroe, God bless his soul, he passed on. He taught on purpose his entire duration of the ministry. And you know, he had a saying, where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. And what he meant by that, if you don't know the purpose of a thing, you are sure to abuse it. I remember as a child, before I go into the message, my dad had this thing of cracking walnuts with a hammer because for some reason he never went and got the hand cracker where you squeeze the walnuts. We just sat out on the front porch at the table and he just hit the walnut with the hammer and cracked them open. He had a Pepsi on hand or a root beer, and he would take a nut and a root beer and went on. Well, of course, children mimic what they see their parents. And the first time I tried cracking that walnut, you know what the end result was. Man, I hit that finger and I realized this is abusing the purpose of a hammer. This is not what it's designed for. Back to my story. In order for you to get through your trial and test, you have to know what's driving you. What's a driver? Even if we talk about a computer, a driver is a computer. It's pretty much files that communicate with a piece of hardware to tell it what to do. And do you not know your vision, the thing that's on the inside of you? That's what you should be keeping your eyes on. That's what should be driving you. Some of you all, God had told you about a ministry you're supposed to start or be a part of or helping to build. There's something about your health. God has given you a vision. He's given you some insight to help you live a more better quality of life. He's given you some insight. It might be for your marriage. It might be for your children, for promotion on your job, whatever it is. There's something God has placed in all of us, just like a computer, and it drives us. And this leads me to the story in the fourth chapter of St. John. Is talking about when Jesus and his disciples came into Samaria. Jesus stopped by a well because he was weary from his journey. At this time, his disciples had went into town to buy some food. A Samaritan woman came to him, and you know the story. They had an entire dialogue. Jesus witnessed to this woman, brought her out of her sin. She was a woman that was involved in multiple relationships, and she gave her life to Christ. By this time, the disciples were coming back. They saw him talking with her, and then they tried to get him to eat. This is what Jesus said in St. John, the fourth chapter, and the 34th verse. He said, I have food that you know not of. He said, my meat is to do the will of God that sent me. They wanted to know, did someone give Jesus something to eat while we was gone? No, Jesus was saying, what gives me my strength? What gives me my nourishment? What gives me what puts the octane in my engine is the vision that God have given me. And he called it meat. In other words, you know, meat is something that gives you strength. It gives you the wherewithal to continue on. If you want some tired workers on your team, don't feed them. And I got that illustration from my mom being on the farm. Likewise with you, what's your meat? Is it seeing people set free? Is it seeing people blessed? Is it a teaching, a preaching ministry? Is it a ministry of serving? Is it a ministry of giving? Is it your marriage? Is it to see your children prosper? Is it to see yourself walk across a stage and receive that degree? What is it that God has downloaded onto your hard drive that's causing you to have this strength, for this zest for life? What is it that wake you up in the morning? Going back to the story of Joseph, do you know when he was thrown into that pit and then eventually went to jail, then was eventually accused of allegedly attempting to rape someone and almost having his life taken? What took him through that entire ordeal that lasted from the teenage years almost up until the age of 30, almost 17 years? What kept Joseph going? What was his meat? What was his nourishment? It was the vision God had given him. Joseph saw himself being someone someday. What was it that caused Moses or Daniel or the three Hebrew boys to strive beyond where they were? It was the vision God had given them. And even Jesus, before he died on the cross, the scripture says he set his sights. His sight was set toward Jerusalem. His face was set like flint. What does that mean? Flint was a hard, porous rock. And it was hard to break, and it was hard to change the structure of it. Jesus said, my mind and my vision is set toward Jerusalem to die on the cross. That's what gave him his motivation. And as I end this, you need to sit down and get back in prayer or get some good reading material. Start with the scriptures that will give you the big picture of your life and ask yourself, what is it that drives me? What is it that gives me my nourishment? What is it that gives me my What's the octane in your tank that causes you to give that extra pull, that extra try, that pushes you through that trial or that test or that storm? That's what you need to keep your eyes on. That's what your focus needs to be. And you will see yourself going through every trial and every storm with the grace of God behind you. I'm going to stop right there. I'm Mark Holliday. That's your encouraging word for today. I want every person here to arise to the leader that's on the inside of you. Success is based off the word.